Hello and welcome to the ASB Investment Podcast, the show that keeps you up to date on the markets and helps you make smart choices with your investments. These are entirely our own views and that of our guests. It's not investment advice, but we know plenty of experts at ASB that will be happy to chat if you need. Well, hello and welcome to the latest episode of the ASB Investment Podcast, the show that captures the essence of the investor around the country, and whether that's sitting around the board table or another important table in Auckland, to a little old cafe in Shannon. We keep answering the questions that are on your and other investors' minds. This one is titled On the Road with ASB. Sounds like a children's book, where we bring the most pressing investment questions straight from our regional roadshow events based on the theme, The Investor's Advantage. And today I'm joined by two good friends, and first is the returning guest, Ngaire Angus, who's the head of wealth distribution, and for the first time, Amehl Smith, who's our head of private banking, both of whom were on the road with us. Welcome to you both. Who wants to go first? How are you? Have you recovered from the travel around the country yet?
Kia ora, Nigel. Yep, no, well recovered. I will say it was a journey, definitely, and we try to make the most of it. I mean, you don't often get the ability to go around the country, so we enjoyed every part. Botanical Gardens, Christchurch, beautiful Havelock North and its sunshine and its vineyards. So we made the most of it. So definitely needed a bit of recovery time.
And Ngaire?
Yeah, I would agree. Kia ora, everyone, and great to be back. Thank you, Nige, and awesome to be here with Amehl. So despite the fact that we've spent a couple of weeks together, we still very much enjoy each other's company.
It's clear.
So that is great.
Yeah.
For me, I was actually on the road for about 3 weeks consistently. And so, yeah, it did take a little, at least a couple of days to sort of rest and recover. And the house actually is still not looking like it should. It's a little bit disorderly.
The washing
pile was enormous.
Okay.
So, we're sort of slowly but surely getting back to some sense of equilibrium.
Okay.
But, sometimes takes a wee while.
To kick things off, for those that couldn't make it, you said you did 3 weeks kind of back-to-back travelling on and off. Tell us a bit about the roadshow and what was it all about? What were we trying to do?
Well, the roadshow was actually a really awesome initiative. It is the first time that we've actually had a collection of kind of all of the key people within our distribution teams and representing our asset management team and BlackRock all together and sort of visiting key centres where we've got both a private banking presence and a wealth presence across the country. So it was a really awesome opportunity to connect with clients. It was an opportunity to hear directly from them, to kind of share what we're thinking in terms of our investment philosophies and how we have been changing up different portfolios and what have been the sort of key drivers behind asset allocation decisions. And we also really took the opportunity to try and understand from our customers what's on their mind, what do they expect from us, what would they like to see from us moving forward. So lots of really, really cool opportunities out on the road to connect and then also to learn.
And it's clear you guys have such a great working relationship. It's not just saying that because we all work at ASB. It was awesome to spend time with you both and kind of how you play off each other and also how your teams are working together. Amehl, what stood out to you, I guess, was the key things that you wanted the roadshow to do and sort of takeaways from it?
I think for me, when Ngaire and I were doing a bit of the planning on it, we worked together to chat personally, professionally, and so that comes through. And I think there was we're obviously very close to Frank Jasper, our new Chief Investment Officer. We get to spend Monday mornings with him and CTB and share their knowledge across our teams. And this was just a brilliant opportunity to share that wider, locally, kind of face-to-face. And so people get to see the people behind the people. They'll have great relationships with my private managers and Ngaire's wealth advisors. But it's important to see the wider ASB and the expertise that comes in behind the scenes around that too. So it's just a brilliant opportunity to actually connect with them personally, so that they can kind of trust who they're dealing with and then understand more about the brands and what we bring to the table. And
I guess for us as well to understand a little bit more about the regional nuances, right? And so I guess, one thing that stood out was for both of your teams, your innate kind of understanding of each region. It's because you've got people who live and breathe down there, right? I guess is that what is at the heart of your offering? Is that kind of regional focus and their understanding of clients?
Yeah, look, I don't think things really differ too much no matter where you go across the country. I think what's really, it came through loud and clear to us, and we've both been in the financial services industry for quite a few decades. And we know that clients really enjoy that deeper understanding of who they're dealing with. They actually expect us to be quite inquisitive and looking at ways consistently to help them achieve their financial goals. So that came through really clearly with lots of the clients that we met. So I wouldn't say that it's necessarily a kind of regional expectation, but I think this is just a sort of human nature thing that actually we want to have a really good team behind us. If we're going to spend our money anywhere, we want to know that it's in safe hands. And we also want to know that people genuinely care about who we are and what we want to achieve. So that's kind of the message that I got from our clients.
And is that as much about is that meeting people? You're saying the people behind the people, or people behind who do things back at a head office or behind the scenes? Is it a really critical meal, like meeting those people?
I think so. I think it just helps you feel definitely connected to the brand and building that trust wider. And actually the personalities behind some of those titles.
They're real people.
The real people behind it. And, the extremely smart level of expertise. You've got them on your podcasts, but just actually who are they and connecting with them. That just is so powerful.
One question that we heard a lot was, one thing we tried to do was, what is the ASB Wealth proposition? What does it mean? And also, what's our partnership with BlackRock? Ngaire, how do whether it's day-to-day outside of the roadshow or just what they've been doing in the last 3 weeks, how are your wealth managers and team tackling that when they're meeting customers day-to-day? Or what are they sort of, using as front of mind or having front of mind for those conversations?
Well, normally what we would see is that we're meeting clients who've already got an established relationship with another part of the ASB, right? So
for instance, like a private banking?
It could be with private banking, it could be with our commercial teams, it could be with our rural teams. So we've already got that. We're fortunate in that there's already, generally speaking, a trusted relationship at play. So for us, it's actually about helping our clients understand what we can achieve for them. So, we are really committed to offering our customers world-class products and investment opportunities and services. And we've got the ambition to be the leading wealth provider and returns provider in the market, particularly in the Kiwi saver space. So, we have got big ambitions. We've got an incredible team behind us. Obviously, we've got the world's largest fund manager in BlackRock and all of the expertise that they provide. And that's an exclusive partnership. And whilst there might be other organisations in New Zealand that have a relationship of sorts, often it's actually just like the sort of risk management system, or, it's a smaller parts of what BlackRock has to offer, where we have the opportunity to actually access all of their resources through our very unique partnership with them. So that's pretty special.
And one thing I get in spending a lot of time with clients and hearing either questions kind of from the floor as we were hosting the talks or after, a lot of them, and I guess where I'm going with this, a lot of them feed into an advice, like having an advice and holistic conversation, like as opposed to someone coming up and going, why have you underweighted this specific asset class? And, something that I might nerd out on. Actually, a lot of them are very help me with this, spend, leave a legacy. I don't know what I don't know. I guess the one thing you didn't mention there was that comprehensive advice process, and it stands out.
Yeah, what's quite unique for us is that we still offer a comprehensive advice and planning service.
And it's not the only thing you can offer. I know you've been teaching me there.
Yeah, that's right.
But it's one of the key things, right?
It is one of the critical things that we provide, and it is a real differentiator. And it does enable us to really delve deeply into what is the money there for, what's it trying to achieve for our clients. And often when we see a client, they may not have actually been through that process previously, so they may not actually be super clear on how much they need in terms of the capital, what it's there to do for them in terms of they've got ambitions to travel, or we've talked about this before, leave a legacy, all of those sorts of things that I haven't necessarily kind of worked through. How much do they need? What does it look like? Sort of a budgeting. It's not like we offer a budgeting service, but we absolutely offer a process that enables clients to feel really comfortable that they've got sufficient capital for the long term, but they can also then, as you say, spend quite happily and be in a good position.
Yeah, probably the other add to that from a broader ASB perspective is that we have the financial wellbeing reviews. So, it's the opportunity for so many to just take up that opportunity to sit down, really start thinking about goals, short-term, long-term, current financial position, and where do they want to be.
So just to be clear, that's not in the private banking thing. You're talking about across
the board.
Your ASB branch, wherever you're...
Correct.
I'm not sure if there's a branch in Shannon, just for the intro, linking it back to the intro, but that's available to everyone.
Correct.
Right.
Free to sit down with the banker and really discuss your financial wellbeing review. In private, we have a probably more in-depth version just due to the complexities, and so that's a private client review. And so that can also then start narrowing down whether you do need to get advice or the opportunities. But, definitely that's available to everyone. That's part of how we support our wider customer base.
And Ngaire, you mentioned about BlackRock and how, critical to to our offering, the insourcing and versus outsourcing. We've had them numerous guests, and how intertwined they are with us. Amehl, to you, what's the importance of the BlackRock relationship to how your team are talking with clients, and what stands out there?
Well, I think it's essentially ASB partnering with the best in the business and the advantage that gives us. And that's across a couple of our brands. If I think about, we partner with AIA Vitality, leading New Zealand insurance brand. BlackRock is that for our investment. It's got links to the best in the industry that we have access to, and we can see that playing out across our KiwiSaver, managed funds, investment funds. And so I think the proof is in the pudding of what we're starting to see grow in that space. And so the team feel very confident about the connection, the relationship that we have and how that plays out for our customers. And
I think I remember sitting in the Wellington, beautiful office, the Wellington office that looks out over the harbour, and like me and Will, who's been on the podcast, having a conversation over lunch with, I think it was various private banking team members. And they had numerous questions, and we just went for it with them. And I think they really appreciate having that access. We've got things our clients are asking for us. We get to, it's not just kind of ASB experts telling us, it's being validated, or we're getting access to Will and BlackRock. So I think that really stands out as the depth and availability, the relationship. During the events, we talked about key shifts we're seeing in the world as well, and what's impacting markets as we know them. And obviously BlackRock keep their finger on the pulse alongside us, keeping an eye on where things are going, what changes might mean for client portfolios, or to what you say, Ngaire, eventual goals and what the money is for. But for a customer, doing that by themselves is pretty challenging. You don't have to feel like, you shouldn't have to feel like you have to do that all in isolation. During the roadshow events with staff and customers, we received a lot of questions on hot topics, things like obviously AI, property, even crypto comes up, and customers were also asking how they should be reacting to things like that. Ngaire, what are the key reflections in terms of how we helped customers make sense of it all? What are we doing?
Yeah, great question, Nigel. And I think the timing of our roadshow was quite interesting because there was that sort of $20 billion liquidation in crypto markets that had just happened. So I think it was quite topical for a few people. And so we did field a few of those questions. And then, of course, lots of questions around the AI bubble and should we be worried about that? And
if it is a bubble.
Well, this is what I wanted to cover, is that, whilst it's kind of everywhere in the news, there's lots of sort of comparisons to maybe the tech
investment cycle in 2000. Maybe if we
let's call it that. Yeah, cool. Yeah. All right. So there's some real key differences, I think. And Frank, who is our Chief Investment Officer, who we've had on the podcast numerous times, really sort of was quite fantastic in the way that he was able to, I suppose, just sort of frame up that there are not only the companies that are sort of typically involved in the AI space and that have sort of form part of the Magnificent Seven that we talk about, but then there's all of these sort of other ancillary companies, perhaps. I don't know.
Yep, subsectors, industries. Yep.
Yeah, that's a good way of describing it. That also provide opportunities. So it's not like we're highly concentrated in just a few companies that are doing exceptionally well. And I think that's the power of the incredible research teams that we've got access to in BlackRock. So we're positioning portfolios to take advantage of the infrastructure needs for AI. We're sort of pivoting away slightly from AI companies themselves and reducing exposure to international global equities in favour of the infrastructure and emerging markets. So that was a sort of key
resonated
message.
really well, I think, when you were saying that.
Yeah, that's right. And actually, Will touched on that quite a bit too, didn't he? So our approach is kind of to focus on the opportunities, look at how technology can open doors for clients, but also make sure that we don't get swept away in the hype. We talked this morning actually about, well, Frank talked to us this morning about Warren Buffett and his philosophies and how he's
Yes.
a big fan. And so there's some really fundamental sort of old school philosophies that our investment managers and our decision makers really sort of keep in mind when we're looking at opportunities.
And I think it was really how, having Frank and CTB and Will there from BlackRock allowed clients to hear, even if sort of didn't understand necessarily all of it, you can see, this is the team that's keeping an eye on things, and we're making decisions, benefited here from one thing, made decisions to, protect wealth that's been created and still benefit on the other side. So I think that was a real highlight for me, for them to, and then they could spend hours after asking specific questions if they had them.
Yeah, exactly, which was awesome.
Amehl, one of the other questions we got at a few of the venues was around potential, this is a broad kind of, assumption, parents wondering about their kids. And maybe they've started investing, which is a fantastic thing to have done. But, what are they doing through new platforms, and thinking about, whether they're doing that or just simply how do we set them up well for the future? And one of those things is, what information they're seeking, getting exposure to. What stood out as kind of that, or to you, why clients were asking that question, kind of reflections on that theme?
Yeah, well, I think that shows, a little bit of the difference in the generations, right? So obviously with KiwiSaver, that's really opened up our younger generation to investing. We've got online trading platforms that are far more accessible. Mm-hmm. There's a whole lot of information online, social media, etc. And so you kind of do have parents watching over what are they doing, where are they putting it, and wanting to safeguard some of that for their kids. And I think it comes back to just, I think it's brilliant that they are essentially looking at other ways to build wealth.
Yes.
But it is just important to make sure that it is with trusted advice. We'd always recommend trusted advice with trusted partners, and just staying close to that. And I suppose that's what we're here to do as a brand, is to ensure that we've got access online. You've got these podcasts, we've got economist reports. Yeah. Just where are you getting your information to help you make well-advised decisions?
Yeah, because I guess, it's a good problem. If you start early, you will probably make mistakes, and it's all part of any profession or career or anything, your hobby you're going into. But eventually, if you keep on it, you'll build up something, and then it might be time to get advice.
100%.
Yeah.
We were talking the other day about, look, we have been in the industry for a while, and I look back and wish I'd made some changes earlier to some of the decisions, or how I was maybe not saving and actually starting to invest, and what that could have opened up, and the opportunity that comes with, we can look back and say, God, I wish I'd done that. Well, they have the opportunity now to really start early and really build strong portfolios.
Sometimes listening to your elders is pretty powerful. General elders. I'm not saying that we're elders.
Well, I actually would say, listen to us elders, because that was also part of the issue, is that when we were younger,
yes,
and maybe
which
in
was
that
only
demographic,
yesterday.
yes,
Which was only yesterday.
Is that it really wasn't talked about that much. And so you didn't necessarily, unless you were in a family environment where that was the norm. I think that was
money in general, or saving?
Money, saving, investing. Those are really important conversations to be having with our children, and trying to set them up for success. Because the sooner you start, the less you need to be saving to get that bigger return in the long run.
So we're talking about it more?
We must talk about it more.
So you don't necessarily, not sure if we're talking about it more, but we just need to.
I think we are.
We are.
Yeah, we are.
And we've got to keep going.
Yeah, we had some customers talk about they've set up different shares for their kids, and now they're both just basically competing against each other. So you can definitely see it is being talked about a little bit more. Yeah. How the different paths to make your money grow.
And that path doesn't have to necessarily just be property.
Correct.
Right? You can start to build something up. So I guess that beautiful segue into property and term deposits are always hot topics. Ngaire, we recorded podcast just recently on kind of both pay off your mortgage or not, term deposits. So we know interest rates have fallen significantly over the last year, and this is particularly impacting our wonderful TD savers and the rates they get. But the property market still seems to be a bit sluggish, and we talked about this with clients, in each of the centres, which is where a lot of Kiwis hold their wealth. Amehl, I guess specific to property maybe, or TDs maybe, if you want to go there after, Ngaire, what are customers kind of have top of mind for property at the moment?
Well, I think there was some real interesting conversations around property in the market at the moment, and it's obviously slower than some would have expected. And I think we do have a tendency to have leaned into property investing, yes, TDs historically, and this was a really good just challenge to broadening your portfolio and diversifying that for you. And so part of this was a bit of an education. I think what came through in some of the roadshows was people are a bit impacted by the past or the market crash or
like
COVID.
87?
Yeah. And that kind of sticks in their mind.
Yeah.
And there was good discussion on investment will have volatility, but it's really about the long-term plan and riding through that, because you can see the drops, but you can see the growth that also comes from that. And so, at times it's riskier to not be in this. And so there was some really good conversation about diversifying portfolio, but actually, yes, there is volatility in investment markets, but that's why it's so important to have that long-term plan. And I think when you've got that trusted advisor in Ngaire's team, that when there is that type of volatility, you've got someone to talk to, someone who can walk you through what we're doing, how we're playing that out.
Yeah, and before we get to you, Ngaire, I loved that example that came up that Frank used in a few of the areas when he remembered to say it, or when the host set him up well to say it, which was me. I loved how he talked about the risk of where you are and your concentration. And a lot of people don't think this. It's kind of like, well, let's just pick out Hamilton, for instance. You may be based in Hamilton, your job, whether you own that company or your salary, your job is based in Hamilton. And then you probably live in Hamilton, see your house. So you're already highly concentrated in Hamilton, and so I think it was a little bit of a light bulb moment for people going, oh, maybe I need to kind of diversify a little bit and think broader. But
that was a very thought-provoking kind of concept for a lot of people, because I think we've tended to do the opposite, where you go, oh, there's opportunities. I live in Hamilton, but there's an opportunity to invest in Wellington or Christchurch or Australia or whatever. Oh, no, too scary. I don't know enough. Actually, what Frank is challenging is you've got this extraordinary concentration risk.
Already.
Already. And so, you've got to start kind of thinking more globally and thinking like an investor, and actually, really trying to understand some of those concepts about what are the risks. And actually, if you've been quite prepared to kind of ride those waves, then maybe your risk tolerance is actually a lot higher than you give yourself credit for. Because there's lots of people who say, oh, I'm just conservative, but you actually look at the behaviour. You see, well, actually, you've invested in this stock and in that property, and, you own a business over here, and you start to sort of unpack it all, and actually they've been taking lots of risks for a very long time.
Well, and calculated, isn't they? Because I remember talking to one client, I think, who was obviously done very well, and property and including property developments. But I think they also said, I'm pretty conservative in terms of, I haven't really considered managed funds or that sort of stuff. And I sort of go, well, I think you're probably a lot less conservative than you think.
Yeah.
With that. And was there anything else that stood out around? I know we've talked about TDs in the past. I won't necessarily go into that, too much. But after spending a lot of this recent time with clients, is there anything you sort of, Ngaire, took away from kind of that TD conversation? I found there was a general receptiveness. Admittedly, these people are, taken up our invite to come along, so they're probably open to it. But, in terms of thinking a bit broader.
Yeah. One of the key messages that we had right throughout the roadshows was to start sort of transitioning from that saving mindset and saver mindset to an investor mindset. So that was the
investor's advantage.
That was why it was called the investor's advantage. Yep. You are sharp, Nigel Grant. And just trying to kind of allow our clients to kind of just delve into that with us and what do you mean by that? Because we're not saying that term deposits are no longer the right vehicle.
No, not at all.
What we're saying is if you've got a reasonable time frame and you've got some ambition for those funds, you want it to grow, then probably term deposits is not necessarily going to achieve that for you.
The only thing.
It's not the only thing.
Yeah.
So, really inviting that conversation and to learn a bit more about all of the other options. I think what Amehl has also touched on is that, to be an investor, you don't have to have a huge amount of money. You just need to get started. We offer free Kiwi Saver advice across many of our channels at ASB, which you can access through branch network, over the phone, through our digital channels as well. And then For clients who do have a substantial amount of money to invest, we offer our wealth advisory service. But as Amehl highlighted earlier, that there's loads of resources out there for clients who are interested, for young people who are very curious. That pathway to wealth through property is not as guaranteed as it once was. And obviously, with property prices the way they're at across New Zealand.
But CTB says that it's a relatively good stage for property if you're a first-time buyer.
First-time buyers, yeah.
But it's still, let's not minimise, it's a substantial achievement to get there. But I guess it doesn't change, start. You still got to start.
You've got to start somewhere, and a lot of those first-time buyers are using KiwiSaver to get into, and that's exactly what it was designed for. But they've been investing for several years to be able to raise that deposit. So if you're having to achieve a 10% deposit on a $1 million property, it's going to take a wee while if you don't get cracking.
But to your point, I guess it's a challenge back to any customer, wherever they are on the spectrum, would be, have you had recent advice on your KiwiSaver? And if you haven't and still want that home, that's a no-brainer step. Finally, we had some fantastic questions about, I guess across the spectrum, include, how much do I need to retire? And Ngaire will go to you on this first. How do I use that money when I get there, the paycheck type thing, or how do I talk, the aforementioned, how do I talk to my kids about investing? I remember in Tauranga, I also had a question, which was, what help can you provide so we know how to spend this money, which was a wonderful, and I didn't know really what to say. I was like, well.
So I think we educated you that if you want to learn how to spend, you come and talk to Amehl and I.
Yeah, great.
We're experts in that.
My go-to. No, I guess I know it's hard to answer any of those questions, but broadly, any advice on that? Is it just starting a conversation because everyone's journey is different?
Everyone's journey is different.
Right.
Absolutely. I think that's the danger when you start trying to pluck figures out and say this is what everybody needs, because we all live in a different way. What's suitable for me may not be suitable for you or Amehl or anybody out there. So we actually need to start to personalise these conversations, and that's where having a trusted advisor, or even if it's somebody that you've just met for the first time at the local branch, who can help you, take you through a guided conversation to have a look at, how much can you afford to save, but also what does that do for you? So that cumulative effect of your investment over time, where's that going to get you to? And is that enough? Is that enough to be able to live the lifestyle that you ideally would like? Now, if it's not enough, then that's going to start to mean that you might need to make different choices. And so, all of that information is really powerful. It's much better than just sort of hoping for the best and really putting your head in the sand. But, KiwiSaver changes are moving in the right direction. We've got, our rangatahi getting more benefits now. So 16 and 17-year-olds qualifying for KiwiSaver. We've got, obviously, that staggered sort of increase in the KiwiSaver contributions by employers. Which is
critical.
Which starts in April, which is pretty cool. We're fortunate at ASB that's already kicked in for us straight into the 4%, which is really amazing. And that's all very, very helpful. So it depends if you're starting out, you're planning for retirement. I think the key thing is, setting some goals and making a plan.
And Amehl, anything to add, I guess, before we wrap up?
Yeah, I think you have to prioritise this. Otherwise, you'll just keep kicking the can down the road. And the difference in just taking the time, choosing the correct fund, adding a little bit more to that contribution, that can be huge down the line. But just have to take the time to prioritise it. And
otherwise, the average week just flows by, right?
That's right. And the worst thing you can do is get advice. So that's, you know what I mean? That's the worst thing that's going to come out is you get advice. And so then you are making...
Oh, right. I know what you mean. Right. Okay. I was like,
sorry.
You're saying it's counter to everything we've just said.
As in, what's the worst thing that's going to happen here?
Lovely.
You're going to be advised and making more informed decisions about your future. I think we often do just get busy. We all do.
Yeah.
And so my advice would be do something, have a chat, have a look at your funds, have a look at what your long-term plans are, and take up the opportunity. Go online. We have a huge amount of resources. Yeah. Online, in branch, through our teams. So just take it up.
I can, to the aforementioned point, I can imagine some people, it's the first home that's the goal. It's clear whether it's by oneself or in a young couple, But I guess if it's okay to also not know what that goal is. So it's the same point, right? Like have a talk about it and then get someone else to help you realise, right? Or work through kind of what it could be. You don't have to know what the purpose of the money is. You don't have to have
all the answers. No. Yeah, exactly right.
And actually another thing too that we've kind of come across over the last few months and a few of the events that we've run is the importance of bringing your partner to the table. So having conversations together, like you say, have it as a family, so that both are being informed and both might have varying levels of understanding, but it's just starting out and not feeling embarrassed to not know everything and not know all the right terms, etc.
Yeah. We're going to wrap up now, but I just want to, thank you both for, I love these conversations because they kind of, can surface up a lot of things that people have on their mind. Yeah, to wrap up to you both, Amehl first, what's kind of is there a takeaway or a single kind of key message you want to leave listeners about and to have keep top of mind? And then we'll go to you, Ngaire, and then I've got one after that.
It would be just, which we've covered off, is having the plan. And so just take the action to go and get that plan would be the takeaway for me.
For me, it just reiterated the importance of human connection.
Yeah.
And we are all creatures that are destined for community and for connection. And so, taking the opportunity to connect with somebody you haven't seen for a while, or, to have these faces and these people who are sending correspondence. It was a real delight to meet clients who said, "Oh, I know you.
Yeah.
You send me this thing every month," or whatever. That was just it was so awesome.
Yeah.
The other thing that I'd take away too is that, gosh, we've got some amazing New Zealanders out there who've done some incredible things. When we were in Hawke's Bay.
Client-wise, right? Yeah. I thought you were talking about us.
Well, I mean, we're pretty cool too.
Okay,
but the clients who've been through so many hardships, the resilience clients in Hawke's Bay, Wellington, it's having a hard time at the moment economically, but, just the buoyancy, the positivity, absolutely amazing. Christchurch,
the rebuild,
my
resurgence.
God, just everywhere we went, we just had such an incredible time with these clients who are so resilient and so warm and so
and wanted to share stories and
So
I mean, my takeaway was, and it's probably more of a public service announcement for listeners out there rather than the people at the events. But I met a lot of people who, and we're not naming names, we won't regionalise it, but a lot of people that have been very successful. Like they've built businesses or had numerous properties, and so obviously they've done well. But that doesn't naturally translate to knowing what to do with that wealth. And they were vulnerable, and they sort of said, well, I don't know what to do next as such. I just want to make sure everyone out there kind of knew that not everyone has all the answers.
Yeah, correct.
So if you have those questions out there, but you're not in that stratosphere wealth-wise, I just want you to know that they're the same questions. And so getting advice and having conversations, they were asking, they were turning up saying, how do I, go back to how do I spend this money? Success in one field doesn't necessarily perfectly translate to knowing all the answers in one. Then to the final question that we ask all of our guests. Amehl, this is the first time for you. Ngaire, it's a repeat for you. I hope you've got some new reading material or something you want to reading, listening, watching. Let's go to you first, Ngaire, then. What's something that you have been reading, listening to, or watching, or a conversation you've had, if we're sort of, sticking with the theme of this podcast? What's something you want to recommend to our listeners?
Okay, so some people who listen to this podcast regularly may know that I spent a few days in Fiji at a conference earlier.
What a terrible spot for a conference.
I know. Yeah, it was hard. And one of the amazing speakers there was one Jamie Pinnell, who actually has written a book called Serviceman J about his time serving as a member of the SAS. And so I have, thanks to my neighbour Brownie, shout out to Brownie, who was also an ex-serviceman, he had the book. And so I was so impressed with both Jamie and his wife, Dr. Alia, absolutely amazing couple. Yeah, so I wanted to read the book. My neighbour had the book, and I'm halfway through it. It's absolutely incredible. And I just had to, just a couple of the notes here. One of the things I love about the book actually is as you're reading it, you actually can sort of plant yourself right in the middle of the action, which is, for me, I think that's the story of the symptom of a great storyteller. But 3 key things like that growth that lives on the edge of discomfort, and that's where you find out what you're really made of. Like those guys, just getting into the SAS is brutal enough. What they have to go through is incredible.
I mean, when I've had a hard day when the email doesn't send.
I know.
You think about your own average work day.
Oh, and actually we were having a giggle because I think there was like this sort of analogy sort of drawn like, you'll hear these stories about, these deployments and how tough it is, and we can we can equate that to life in the corporate world. And I was thinking, oh my God, we've got absolutely no idea. We're such little snowflakes. And then elite performance isn't about ego. So it's about integrity, discipline, and serving something bigger than yourself. Absolutely amazing. Like these guys are steely in their purpose and their mission. And, what I got from him was that it was all about making a difference for human beings and humankind. Yeah.
Oh, you're up on the foils. I can see you're inspired.
Oh, yeah. And then also, like, changing roles is one thing, but you also, you know, like what your outside world might change, but if you're not dealing with things on the inside, actually you could be in for a lot of heartache and pain. So
if you haven't got the self kind of in control.
You have to come home to yourself, you've got to start to process things. And that's in the context of going from, you know, living in these incredible environments where it's like absolute chaos and death and destruction, and then sort of transitioning back to civilian life.
Right.
And how that's so difficult if you don't do the work. So the internal work, quite fascinating.
Yeah.
Why did you let her go first, Nigel?
I know. I look forward to hearing about your literary example.
Hard act to follow that one.
Sorry, love. I've got some more stuff if you want.
Oh, keep it till the next time.
Okay.
I picked up a couple of books in the airport. I love a good paper book. And
agree.
This is the book I picked up was The Art of Spending Money.
Oh, Morgan Housel?
Yes.
How was it?
So halfway through it, I love it. It's about the psychology of why we spend in different ways. I love kind of reflecting on how I was brought up and therefore the decisions I make about how I spend my money for me, for my family. And it just, you know, it helps be reflection and then what I need to do differently potentially to change that path. So I'm loving that. Also, actually off the back of Ngaire's invite, got to go to a sip and share recently where we had Lisa O'Neill come. She was one of the guest speakers. She was outstanding. Huge takeaway was around just protecting yourself and your energy and who you give it to and how you give it, what you're responsible for, etc. It was a huge, great morning blast, but she's put out a book on that, on energy. So that's my next on the hit list.
Didn't get upstaged at all. Perfect. My one was just, my simple reference was just, I guess, to let listeners know about, you know, how rewarding it was to spend time with your clients, talking to them, hearing their stories, as you said. Important to get out of the office as well, you know, and get close to the people that use your whatever it is, your product. And I know probably people do that day to day, but sometimes some of us in big head offices can sometimes not do that enough. One particular, it wasn't through an event, but one particular highlight was sitting next to Barbara on the flight to Christchurch. I think she was in her mid-80s. They were off to a Blenheim garden tour. They had individually packed lunches, her and her friend, on the flight. And it was just so wonderful. Like, talked for an hour on this flight about all our lives and travel tips gardening. She was going to a garden show, so it was we naturally hit it off.
After your own heart.
But she wanted some help with scams and frauds as well, and so she's in terms of her community and what ASB could help educate them. So I'm hoping to work on that and get someone out to see her wherever she lives. Will be confidential, but I just thought that was the highlight as well.
Well, we've got community bankers that can.
That's right. So that's what I'm trying to set up. Yeah.
Okay, well done. Beautiful. Love it.
Or whoever the person is for that region, which we'll leave out. To you both, thanks for giving up your precious time. It's been a pleasure having you back or for the first time on the show. You enjoyed it?
Loved it. Thanks.
Good. Okay,
yeah, good fun.
We will get you back again and again. And we hope to be back on the road in the new year sometime, I'm sure. That's just kind of seeding it out there for the decision makers. If you're keen for us to come to your town, let us know. We will play most community halls and venues as long as there are at least a couple of people who are keen to hear us. But until next time, happy investing and bye for now. Thanks for listening to the ASB Investment Podcast. If you have any thoughts on this episode, or if there's anything you'd like us to discuss on a future show, get in touch with us at podcasts@asb.co.nz.